Hey everyone, and welcome back to Crimes That Echo. You know, here we don't just tell these stories for shock value. That's not what we're all about. Our whole thing is to dig for the truth, chase after justice, and seriously just make sure we remember the people involved. We really try to look into the dark corners of the past, hoping to bring some light to today and maybe, just maybe, keep us all a bit safer. Every single case file we open is a testament to lives that got totally messed up, and it's a really stark reminder of how deeply crime can hit individuals, families, and honestly, just everyone around. Today's case, we're heading back to the 9th of July 2004. Picture this, a winter's day in Johannesburg, South Africa. This is a story that gripped a whole entire country. It's a super tragic narrative, all tangled up with lies, so many unanswered questions, and just really a deep sense of loss. And you know what? It's a story that still echoes in a lot of people's hearts, even today. It's just this chilling reminder of how quickly life can change and how much darkness can be hiding even in places you'd never ever expect. So Leigh Matthews, by all accounts, she was this really vibrant, super promising 21-year-old. She was a student at Bond University in Johannesburg. And honestly, she was the hopes and dreams of so many South Africans. Her life was this whole tapestry of goals, great friendships, and just the everyday rhythm of campus life. On the morning of the 9th of July 2004, her day pretty much started like countless other students. Her dad, Rob Matthews, dropped her off at campus. A total normal everyday ritual, you know, with those quick goodbyes and the unspoken promises that she'd be back home later. He had absolutely no idea, like zero clue, that the super mundane act of a loving parent would actually be the last time he'd see his daughter alive. It was the final brushstroke on a picture that was about to get tragically ruined. The hours after that, they were pretty typical for Leigh. Classes, maybe a quick lunch with friends, and the usual campus buzz. But as the day went on, this really insidious, quiet dread just started to creep into the Matthews household. Leigh didn't come home when she was supposed to. At first, calls to her phone went unanswered. And then this is where it gets chilling. They started going straight to voicemail. That casual concern you get when someone's a little late. Yeah, that quickly turned into this gut-wrenching anxiety, this terrible feeling that something was just profoundly wrong. That evening, the family's worst fears hit them with this horrible certainty. Leigh's parents got a phone call that, would change their lives forever. The voice on the other end was just cold, totally calculated, and honestly, just completely emotionless. A man claimed he had kidnapped Leigh. His words just hung heavy in the air, transforming the Matthews' comfortable home into a place of fear and sheer desperation. The demand was simple, a ransom of 50,000 rand. For Rob and Sharon Matthews, that amount was totally irrelevant. Their daughter's life was on the line. They didn't even hesitate. Every single instinct screamed at them to comply, to literally do whatever it took to bring their child back home. The spot picked for the ransom drop was a secluded place chosen by the kidnapper to have maximum control and minimum risk. Rob Matthews, a father driven by this unimaginable terror, delivered the money himself. His heart must have been pounding with this desperate hope that this act would actually bring his daughter back. He followed the instructions exactly, every nerve ending just screaming with anticipation for Leigh's return. Now, what happened next? This is where it gets really deeply disturbing and honestly just frustratingly unclear, even more than 20 years later. The Matthews family waited, their lives on hold, for that call that would say Leigh was safe, for the sight of her just walking through their front door, but the call, it never came. Leigh wasn't returned. The chilling reality just sunk in. Even though the ransom was paid, her kidnapper had still chosen to end her life. This cold hard truth was just a brutal punch, shattering their world into tiny, irreparable pieces. The whole ransom exchange, which was supposed to be her lifeline, had instead become this final, agonizing act of betrayal. 12 agonizing days later, the nation's worst fears were confirmed in the most brutal way you can imagine. On the 21st of July, Leigh's body was found in an open field in Walkerville, which is a rural area south of Johannesburg. The discovery sent shockwaves through the entire country, confirming what no one wanted to believe. She had been shot 4 times, just a brutal, senseless act that left no doubt about what the attacker meant to do. The thought of this vibrant young woman full of life and promise ending up like that in a desolate field, it just haunted everyone in South Africa. The nation was totally shaken. News channels were all about the story. Radio waves carried these sad reports, and newspapers ran headlines that showed the collective grief and outrage. South Africa followed the investigation with really heavy hearts, a united feeling of sadness, and this desperate hope for answers. I mean, the brutal murder of a young innocent student just struck a chord with every parent, every sibling, every friend. There was this real, almost palpable demand for justice, a deep need for the person responsible to pay for such a horrific crime. Eventually, all that intense pressure on law enforcement actually worked, and they found a suspect, Donovan Mudley, who was a fellow student at the same university, was arrested. The news was met with a mix of relief and honestly just profound disbelief. Like, how could someone from her own academic world, someone who moved in the same circles, be capable of such an atrocity? Mudley eventually confessed, and for many, that confession should have brought some kind of closure. But even to this day, the actual reason why he did it and whether he acted alone is still debatable, with an intensity that just doesn't fade, even after all this time. You see, Mudley's story of what went down was really confusing and at times totally contradictory. He claimed he was desperate for money, saying he needed it to pay off drug debts, but honestly, the details around the kidnapping, the super careful planning, and especially that cold-blooded murder after the ransom was paid, that just seemed to point to something way more sinister than just a quick grab for money gone wrong because of debt. The sheer brutality of the act, the multiple gunshots, and then just dumping her body in an isolated field, it painted this picture of deliberate cruelty that just doesn't seem to add up with the simple ransom attempt. So why did he do it? This question just keeps echoing, without any real satisfying answer. Was it purely about money, like he said, or was there some other darker, more personal thing hidden underneath all that? The fact that there wasn't a clear logical reason for her murder, especially since the ransom was paid, really made people wonder if he had these deeper, way more complex reasons that he just refused to share. Was there more to the story? A lot of people definitely think so. The possibility of him having help, like accomplices, has honestly never been fully dismissed by the public. I mean, the way the kidnapping was done, the ransom drop, and then the whole murder and getting rid of the body, it just raised questions about whether one person could really have planned and pulled off the entire crime with such chilling efficiency, especially with all the different places involved. The idea that he might have had assistance, that others might have known or even been involved, just adds another layer of disturbing complexity to an already tragic story. The public's lingering doubt about him acting alone really comes from how sophisticated the crime seemed and the perceived lack of a truly compelling solo motive for that final terrible act. And why did so much stay hidden, even with a confession? This is probably the most frustrating part of the Leigh Matthews case. A confession is usually seen as the way to find the truth, right? But Midley's confession just seemed to open more questions than it answered. His changing accounts, his shifting explanations, and his ultimate refusal to give a clear, believable reason for killing her after getting the ransom money just left this huge hole of understanding. That feeling that crucial pieces of the puzzle were deliberately kept secret, that a full and open account was never given, it still bothers everyone who followed the case. The lack of genuine remorse, or maybe a believable explanation for his actions, just made sure that the whole truth stayed out of reach, hidden by the killer's confusing silence and vague statements. For the Matthews family and for the nation, the confession gave them a conviction, but not necessarily the peace of mind that comes with truly understanding why. The echoes of those unanswered questions just keep going, keeping the memory of Leigh Matthews and the sheer injustice of her death painfully alive. So, that was the story of Leigh Matthews, a powerful reminder of a life tragically cut short, a family forever scarred, and a whole nation left trying to figure out these huge questions. Her memory honestly serves as this beacon, kind of guiding us as we try to find clarity when things are unclear, and demanding that people take responsibility when they need to. We share these stories not to be sensational, but to truly honor the victims, to raise awareness, and to echo that urgent need for justice. Every voice we raise, every story we tell, it just helps build this collective memory that makes sure tragedies like this aren't forgotten, and that lessons, no matter how painful, are learned. Our commitment is to shine a light on the often dark parts of crime, not to use anyone's pain, but to build empathy, understanding, and this renewed dedication to keeping our communities safer. Thanks so much for listening. Your attention really helps us make these crucial stories heard. Make sure you subscribe for new episodes every Sunday because we'll keep digging into cases that have left a serious mark on our history. And hey, if you know of a case that needs to be told, a story that deserves to be heard, a victim who needs their voice echoed through time, just reach out to us. Together, we can make sure these stories resonate, that justice isn't forgotten, and that the echoes of the past actually protect our future.